Let's welcome to the show CTU economist Craig Renney. CTU economist and podcaster Craig Renney. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Evening, Pat. Evening, Chewie. How are you?
Good, mate.
Good. Now, listen, we are going to go on, once we've talked to you, to talk about the nurses' action today. But as a part of the nurses' action, what I did today was I contacted Simeon Brown's senior press secretary and had a chat to him, because we hear Simeon Brown saying, I'll get the exact quote, because, the average nurse might technically be different than on average a nurse. So I'll tell you the exact quote, which he actually said. Don't talk amongst yourselves. Nothing to see here. So this is what he said on the tiles. With the average nurse earning around $125,000 inclusive of overtime and allowances. So that's what Simeon Brown said today. With the average nurse earning around $125,000. Now that says to me probably the majority of nurses, probably that big group in the middle of their experience, not the most experienced, not the least experienced, the average nurse, half to 2/3 of the way up their pay scale would be earning $125,000. So he said that again today, and I thought, well, we need to check this. So I got a hold of his press secretary. I sent them an email. The email I sent to them was one I was reading from. Maybe I'll just read you the email. It's very short. Hi there. Can you please provide the workings for where Simeon Brown can make the following statement? With the average nurse earning around $125,000 inclusive of overtime and allowances, quote unquote. The minister said this morning at a stand-up on the tiles, I would appreciate an expedited response as we're going to air it this evening talking about this issue. I then found the phone number, because I'm a detective, of the senior press secretary, and I gave him a call and he spoke to me and he was like, yep, I think that's pretty much that's on Te Whatu Ora's website. I'll send you the workings of it. He then sent me the workings. I then sent you the workings because I don't speak Latin. And this is what we're going to bring you on, because you are our numbers man. And this is the document that he sent me. He sent me this document, Health New Zealand, Te Whatu Ora, New Zealand Nurses Organisation, Nursing Workforce Fact Sheet. It's quite in detail. I'm going to go back to the start and get it, because there's one line in particular, right, that I wanted to focus in on, because that's where it says it. So it's got the registered nurse graduate 1, 75K, et cetera. Medium penal rate, I'm assuming that means that's the bonuses they talk about, the overtime.
That's the penal rate. That's the middle penal rate. So it's different again to the different average you're talking about before.
Okay. Then there's a middle step of 91 and there's a top step. So basically 6+ years, the top step you can get is $106,000. Obviously you can get overtime and other things on there as well. And it's this sentence here. $125,662 is the average salary for both senior and registered nurses, and includes overtime, PDRP allowance, and penal rates. Now, the reason I sent it to you, I'm a rodeo clown from Dunedin. I'm a bit simple. I don't see the workings in that. I see a number, 125,662, and then saying overtime, allowances, penal rates. But I don't see. If this is my cake again, I don't see how many eggs and how much flour and how much milk, right? So I don't know how much overtime this is, or what's the size of the allowance, or what are the penal rates. And to be fair, I've texted him again, and I said to him after I received that, oh gosh, it's way down there. Sorry to disturb, but I was wondering if you could clarify. The line in the document that you sent saying 125,000 yada 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 just lists overtime allowances, but still doesn't show the workings for how much overtime would have to be worked to get to that number. I'm really wanting to know how we get to that number, not just that is the number. So we've brought our little our Hobbiton wizard in to have a chat to us about this. You've had this document for a wee while. Explain away, sir.
Well, I wish I could provide you the clarity that you want. The key number that you've got is actually on that table. The base salary, so what a person would be paid if they were doing nothing else, if they were doing their job as contracted full time. The job we want them to do, would be well less than 125,000 for the top step. it would be that 106,739. Now that's for a nurse who has, as you say, more than 6 years experience, and is on top of their game, and is highly qualified. So for that's again not the average nurse. The average nurse is not a top step nurse. By definition, that's someone who's at the top of the step, top of the chain. So there will be a lot of nurses who are below that. So again, it's not 125,000. The only way in which you could get to 125,000 is if you're adding essentially $19,000 of allowances and overtime. Now, what we know is that from that is that the overtime is worth about sort of roughly $14,000, right? So let's make life easy for ourselves in terms of the maths and say it's about 15% of the overall allowance. What that means is someone's working essentially a half a day each week extra in overtime just to receive that rate. And across the period, they're working probably a lot more than that, because what we know from the strike today is that many nurses are actually working beyond their overtime rates essentially for free, because there aren't other nurses to look after the patients that are in the hospitals.
Yeah,
so
I think we had I think Gary Payenda had a podcast the other day when he was talking to the nurses organization, and they said things like there's certain things they have to do at the end of each shift to do with clocking out and checking out and then training, and they've now done all that in their own time. They don't get paid for that anymore, so any of that extra work happens after their shift is finished, and they get no remuneration for that as well. So like you're saying, sorry sir, keep going though. You still with us, Craig?
We lost him.
We might have lost him. Let me just reiterate, maybe we've lost Craig and he'll have to jump back on. The thing that Craig was saying, and the thing that I said to Craig this afternoon.
Craig,
you're back? You're back, Craig? Yep, I think you're back, Craig. I can see you moving.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, yes.
That's right. I'll just finish this point I was making, then you come back in. The thing you just said, which we talked about on the phone beforehand, is if it's the average, it's not the median. The median is the middle, or is it the mean? Median's the middle?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So it's not the median.
Median's the middle, the mode is the most common, and the mean is the average,
Yeah, okay. So it's not the median. They're not saying that, but they're basically saying it's the average. And in an average, you typically have a good amount above and a good amount below. And I know it doesn't quite work like this, but if the below is 75,000, which it says on that base salary, then the above would be 175,000. So you're not going to have, like for all the 75,000s, you need 175,000 to average that back to 125. And there's no one getting 175,000 as far as we know. So that's why it doesn't work on so many levels. But hopefully you're back now, Craig, and you can take over with the numbers.
We lost him again.
We've lost him again.
Right when we needed him.
I think Mr. Simeon Brown has gotten himself into our algorithms tonight.
Who's the Minister for Internet Connections?
Yeah. Oh, you go. You're back now, Craig? Yeah, see you're moving.
Hopefully, yeah. Apologies, yeah. The irony here is I'm not even using my landline. I'm using mobile telephony, so this should be fine.
We'll go for it now. You take over.
Satellite. Yeah, essentially, long story short, this is not an average. This is not an average that anyone should be using. This number is the 125,000 figure is a figure that's been put out there essentially as advertising. And if it was advertising, it would break advertising standards. Right? It's not a real number, right? So this is a number that includes PDRP. PDRP is an extra qualification that you have to earn on top, right? So it's not the average nurse again. It's a nurse with another qualification on top. It includes a range of other allowances. If you scroll to the very bottom of this document, Pat, if you keep going down to the very, very bottom, right, if you go up a little bit, you can see all the additional payments that are in there.
30% of nurses have the PDRP.
So it's not the average.
Yeah, so it's 30%, and that only gets you 3 to 4,500.
Okay.
That's not that 19,000 you're talking about.
Yeah. Then there's a nurse practitioners are eligible for a professional development allowance.
And we always got to be careful, especially with this government, of those 4 little letters there, up to $6,000.
Up to exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and then if you go above the leave part, right, a further breakdown of allowances that are available, which again may or may not occur in individual circumstances.
Yeah.
So average is doing a lot of work here, which it shouldn't be doing. You should be concentrating on the base pay. But let's be honest, right? Pay levels are what they are, right? We pay people because that's hopefully that's the rate for that particular piece of work. Cabinet colleagues, so cabinet ministers who happen to sign off on removing pay equity reforms this year, received a 2.5% pay rise this year, where a minister moved from $313,100 to $320,600 a year before benefits.
Nice, good for some. I mean, they work so hard, Craig.
They do work hard, but I would suggest that if we're all demonstrating restraint, yesterday it was announced that directors on boards would receive an 80% pay rise. Again, restraint.
Yeah.
And the key thing is that if you go back to that chart again, Pat, if you go back to that document again, Pat, I want to point you to something that's really important, which is actually something they're hiding here. So if you scroll down, there's a lovely graph, and I'm a big fan of a graph, as you're well aware. There you go, nursing salary growth from 2011 to 2024. And I want you to look, so they've helpfully drawn some lines. Now, the dark blue parts of the nurses' pay growth, that's actual pay growth. The light blue parts are pay equity, which is actually paying for underpayment of nurses since forever. And if you look along, you can see CPI, same period, LCI, same period, and HLPI, same period. Most of your listeners will know what the CPI is. That's just inflation. LCI is the labor cost index. That's wage inflation across the period. And HLPI is the household living price index, which is a really helpful number because that helps you tell you what the average costs that households face across that period. What you see is that most nurses have had pay rises, the actual pay rises, not the pay equity changes, essentially below the HLPI, below household costs changing across the period. And in fact, some nurses have seen pay grow at exactly the same rate as CPI, as inflation. What that means is since the 1st of January 2011, nurses have seen no real terms pay increase.
Wow.
Right?
That's,
so when someone's telling you that, these nurses are just being greedy, they're being paid a lot, they're being paid too much, right? The Tifata Ora's own advice to the minister is that a senior nurse on step 4 has been paid exactly the same as inflation for 13 years.
Yeah, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, but we know that they're not actually saying nurses are being greedy. They're just implying that.
Of course.
Not overtly saying it. They're saying nurses are valued, but they get so much money already. They're implying that they're bad people.
Nurses are valued and we have valued them, is what they're saying. Right? But unfortunately, the data is telling us the value that they've given is exactly the same as inflation.
Craig, is there anything else? Me and Chewie will go and watch some stuff on the nurses' strikes now, but is there anything else from that data or anything else about the strike that you want to leave us with tonight?
Very quickly, again, on that document.
I'm used to doing this for Craig, putting graphs up because I do that with his podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you go to the paragraph below, current NZNO collective agreement negotiations.
Yep.
And it goes ARA recommendations, and you scroll down and you see there's a thing that says, if you keep going, keep going. You see there's a section that's underlined. Just up a tiny little bit. There you go.
Yeah.
Read the full recommendations here. And essentially, in this document, they say that the Employment Relations Authority, which is the kind of mediator in this space, recommended that the nurses accept the pay offer.
Let me read it word for word. It recommended NZNO take the Health New Zealand offer of 1% for each year of the 2-year term to members for ratification. So it recommended that NZO should take this offer.
Correct.
That's what it's saying in here.
Now, if you click on the link and you scroll down a little bit, you'll come to a downloadable document. You can, a PDF file link. There you go. And if you turn, for those of you who are thoroughly following along at home, paragraph 32 and 33.
18, 19, 22, 32, 33. There's 32.
32. Now then, the real story here is not that they accepted, not that they recommended to NZNO that they should take the offer forward for ratification, right? Paragraph 32 says, we cannot recommend that Health New Zealand increase its offer when it does not have the funds to do so, thus putting it in breach of the government's workforce policy statement.
And this would cause it to move backward in its steps to attain financial sustainability, which is required to achieve. So in English, that means? That means
that because there is no money, we can't ask HNZC, sorry, we can't ask the Health New Zealand to increase its offer when it simply doesn't have any.
So they said we recommended they take the offer, and in this document they say that we don't have the money for them to take that offer.
Well, we don't have we would like to be able to offer the nurses more money. We would like there to be a better offer, but there isn't any money for a better offer, so we're recommending that you take the offer forward for ratification.
Right.
And then, but para 33 underneath, the first line of which is damning. We could recommend that HNZC seeks further funding. However, there is no rationale that supports this approach because there is no money.
So this document is saying they can't do the 1% because there's no money. What the government needs to do, Health New Zealand, go back and get more money and make them a real offer.
But we can't do that because it would break the agreement.
But that cheat sheet we got given basically says we told them to take it, whereas this document says we couldn't offer them that and you guys need more money. So they're incongruent with one another, those two documents.
Yep, and as a consequence, it's not necessarily saying the same thing. In fact, I would argue it's being very careful with its wording. It did recommend that NZNO accepts the offer simply because Health New Zealand has no more money. Health New Zealand has no more money because the government has decided to give it no more money. You are in a catch-22 situation.
Yeah, well, like we always say, a budget for one of their ministries is just what they decide to allow them to have from their endless buckets of money. You got to stick to your budget. What if we can't stick to our budget? Then make cuts. It's never, oh, we'll give you some more then. It's always, you better cut out. They could do both.
They could do both. And you know, and what we saw today and what we heard from nurses today was, you know, what's happening on the front line in nursing, the real pressures that are being placed upon them. And Health New Zealand's offer essentially says, well, we might recognise that, but we can't do anything about it because the government has told us that you can't have any more money. Ergo, that's it.
Yeah. Craig, you always paint such a pretty picture. Do you want to tell the whānau what your podcast is going to be about this week so they know what's coming?
Yep. So next week we have unemployment numbers. So I'm delighted to have the lovely economist Ganesh Nana, who may be familiar to some of your listeners and viewers, coming on the show to help talk about unemployment to date and what we're expecting in the numbers next week and what the different kinds of unemployment are in the system and why the headline rate sometimes isn't the best rate to look at, particularly when it comes to youth unemployment. And hopefully next week on Thursday, the 6th, we should also get unemployment numbers coming out, and so we're gonna real numbers, and so with any luck and a better internet line, we will be doing a live from Statistics New Zealand building with the numbers are just out. This is what it really means. And so you can get the numbers fresh from Statistics New Zealand.
Yeah, I think that's next Wednesday. That's next Wednesday, the 6th,
Yep.
I think. Yeah, cool. All right, Craig. Hey, look, thank you so much for jumping in. It's lovely that our 10-minute chat turned into about 25 minutes. Apologies for that, but it's important that we call these guys on the bullshit if we know. Because, yeah. And I thank you, we thank you, and I'm sure the audience thank you to be able to come out and pull out some of the things that some of us who don't quite understand the numbers as much might just skate over. And so we really appreciate you being involved. And I guess we'll, the other thing about this week's podcast is going to be out on Friday morning, not Thursday morning.
It will be.
Because you're recording it with Ganesh tomorrow. So that's
Correct.
the only other thing to remind people. All right, Craig.
We were all at the strike action today. Apologies for the delay.
No need, no reason to apologize. We look forward to that on Friday morning. And I guess I will speak to you tomorrow.
All right.
All right, Craig.
Thank you.
All the best.